All right, let's talk. We announced the Field of 68 postseason awards today. And actually, you and I agreed on pretty much everything. So not having a contrarian like John Fanta on here would have been ideal. But Oscar Shibway, National Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I think for everybody, it basically came down to Johnny Davis or Oscar Shibway. Talk to me why those two and why you went with Big O.
Oh, a Big O, because every time they played a huge game, he ended up with like 30 and 20. That was the big thing for me. When do you show up at your best? Like Oscar Shibway, he showed up at his best at Arkansas and ended up with, what was it, 30 and 21 or something like that. And then they would play a big game at home. He'd end up with another 30 and 20. Some of the stats that he had this year are just comical. And he played big time games with both guards out. Like they were able to center and focus everything around him. And without their two best guards, and they still won because he's in there dominating everything within 10 feet. So that's why I thought he was National Player of the Year.
So much of what Kentucky wants to do on both ends centers around the fact that they know that they have this monster that's going to hoover up every rebound that is within like 12 feet of him. Right. Yeah. They are so good against transition defensively, and they make you play in the half court because they only have to send two guys to the offensive glass because they know that they have the single best offensive rebounder in all of college basketball. They can get out and run in transition. And I think that Coach Kyle has made it an effort to be more of a transition up-tempo team because they don't have to worry about sending all five guys to the defensive glass because you have a monster that's going to go and get every single rebound that is anywhere near him that he can get his paws on. So much of what they do is a result of his ability to be on the glass. I think that he is the single most important player in college basketball. If he's not on that team, I don't think that they are anywhere near as good as they are right now, mostly because they don't have any other depth, right? Like if he's not playing, it's Damian Collins. Is he out there?
Yeah.
Like if he's not playing, do you have Lance Ware out there? It's not, there's not a ton of depth in the front court for that Kentucky team. So
the only argument I'd have for that last part is like Johnny Davis probably means more for Wisconsin than Oscar means for Kentucky.
Yeah.
That would be my only argument.
Lost.
And yeah.
And that's why I have Johnny Davis number 2. But my counter to that would be Kentucky. I think we all can agree is a top 5 team in the sport, maybe top 2, top 3, depending on how you view some things, and has a very, very real chance to win a national title. Wisconsin is more of a team where it's like, I can see them being a 3 or 4 seed that can sneak their way into the Final Four. And to me, that level, that difference in how good a team is, has a lot to do with just with where you rank teams when it comes to when he has to matter in these awards, I think. Right?
No, certainly does. And crazy part is if Wisconsin does get to the Final Four, you better build that man a statue.
Yes.
Because that's how good he has been, if that's the case.
Yeah, and if they make it to the Final Four and Johnny Davis averages 100 or scores 120 points in those 4 games to get him there, would you be surprised? I would not be.
Not in the least.
All right, Coach of the Year. This ended up for our poll ended up being a runaway. So we have 11 people that voted on this, right, including both the Millers, Steve Prohm, Randolph Childress, you, me, Fanta, Goodman, a whole bunch of people. I think we had 8 people vote Ed Cooley for Coach of the Year, but it really came down to Ed Cooley or Tommy Lloyd. And I think the final tally ended up being like Cooley got 28 total points and Tommy Lloyd ended up getting 22 total points or something like that. So It was closer than you would think that it was. It was basically 1 and 2. So why Ed Cooley, and why did you take him over Tommy Lloyd?
Was there an all Big East first team performer on Providence?
No.
His ability to manipulate games, and their record goes without saying. So let me just point that out to begin with. 24-4. They don't have a McDonald's All-American on the roster. They're not going to get McDonald's All-American. So you have to piece your roster together with puzzle pieces. And that's part of coaching. A lot of people say, well, can this guy coach? He just recruits. He's just a recruiter. No, that's part of coaching. And knowing the kind of guy that you're getting is going to be huge moving forward, because he was able to put Noah Horkler around Nate Watson and Jared Bynum in good spots and Al Durham, who needed to be a closer for them, and Justin Minaya, who's their defensive stopper. Like those puzzle pieces fit perfectly, on top of the fact that in order for them to win 24 games, I think, what was it, 13 of them within 5 points, like that shows a lot of what he's about and how he can manipulate a game. So that's the reason I went with Ed Cooley over Tommy Lloyd. Tommy Lloyd, whenever he came in, he did add some pieces, but the cupboard wasn't bare. That was a big portion of me voting him second. And then I went third with Mark Adams because I think he's shocked everybody just because of the kind of guys that he brought in. And then despite not having a guy that is really a go-to scorer on that team, like who's Texas Tech's go-to scorer, you don't really know. And yet here Texas Tech is competing at the top of the Big 12. So those were my three, with Ed Cooley obviously being at the top.
Yeah, so I was going to go with Tommy Lloyd for the longest time. Like I was first year of the program, you win your conference, you're going to get a 1 seed. You take a team that was outside of the preseason top 25, you turn them into a top 2, top 3 team, maybe win a national title like that. That's coach of the year stuff. But, you know, I remember this was, I can't remember who said this, but I feel like this is just kind of a thing that you hear when you're in basketball circles, right? If you're in a 5-point game and you win, it's coaching that wins it, right? Coaching wins close games. And you go out and you look at what Providence has done this season. The reason why they are so high on that like Ken Palm luck rating is because they keep winning close games. And why do they keep winning close games? Part of it is the execution of their guys late. Part of it is the belief that they have that they're going to win. But a huge part of it is they're being set up for success by the coaching staff. They're getting good, the right play calls and the right sets down the stretch. And they have a coach that has developed that level of belief within the program and within the university and within the team and with every single person on that roster. And to me, that's something that you just cannot overlook. When you win your first ever Big East regular season title, they've been in the league 43 years. First ever Big East regular season title that Ed Cooley just led that Providence team to. You cannot overlook that. So I think more than whatever Tommy Lloyd has done, I think Ed Cooley, you got to give him his flowers this year. He's been that good. He's
100%. They're going to back up the Brinks truck for him too. So
yeah,
good for him.
Yeah. And look, I really hope that he never leaves.
Yeah, me too.
I really hope that he never leaves. Like that is he is Providence. Providence is Ed Cooley. Never leave, man. Don't go. Like you don't need to. You have nowhere that you need to be. That's Providence is where you need to be. Providence is where you need to be.
The problem with that is there's so many places that his personality fits. So there's always going to be whispers or people talking about Ed Cooley. I hope he never leaves either, because let's be honest. I mean, that's a town that loves basketball, So I hope that he keeps feeding into that, and I hope he stays. Like you said, I hope he stays, because there's very few times, like the grass is always greener. I'm not sure it's a lot colder up there. It might be warmer on the other side of whatever fence he's looking at, but but that's a great place to be. It's a great place to coach. So I hope he never leaves.
Yeah, and he's never going to get fired. There's something to be said for always having the job security that you can coach until you are done coaching in one spot. Never have to worry about moving your family. Never have to worry about relocating. Moving is a bitch. Trust me, I've done it too many times. Don't move.
Yeah.
If you can set down roots, set down those roots. All right. Let's walk through first team All-America. For at the field of 68, our first team All-American team was Oscar Shibway, Johnny Davis, Keegan Murray, Kofi Coburn, and Oshai Igbaji. It's the same first team All-American that I had, and I believe it's the same first team All-America that you had when you submitted.
No, I had who were the last two you said? Kofi Coburn. I had him on. I didn't have him. I thought he was too inconsistent. So I went Colin Gillespie on first team as opposed to Kofi Coburn.
Gillespie was my second team guy.
Yeah,
the centerpiece of the guy that won a share of the Big Ten regular season title. To me, that was a little bit more than what Gillespie. I love what Gillespie's done. I think you got to go with the guy that was part of a regular season title.
No, I hear you, and I like Kofi Coburn fine. It's just there were so many. Gosh, Rob, we watched so many freaking games, and I watched probably 5 or 6 of Illinois' games over the course of the year, and I think 3 of which, or 4, or 2 or 3 of which, he was in foul trouble and didn't really get out of the blocks. And that might just been a victim of which games I watched. But obviously his numbers are terrific. He had a great year. It's just that stuck out to me whenever they played Purdue at home and he was just overwhelmed with guys that were just as big as him. That really stuck out in my mind. And then I watched Colin Gillespie in person just take the heart and soul out of everybody in Providence, Rhode Island one night where it was just a madhouse. And he nothing bothered him. So I went Colin Gillespie on that first one.
Let me ask you this. I think kind of for college basketball media as a whole, we've kind of gotten to the point where we don't think that there is a team from the Big Ten that is necessarily a Final Four favorite. Maybe it's maybe it's Purdue, maybe it's Illinois, Wisconsin can make it, Iowa can make it, whatever you want to say. I think we've all kind of accepted that there is a certain level of teams, and the Big Ten does not have one of those teams. But they have 3 first-team All-Americans, according to us, and according to what is, I think, going to end up being the consensus. And that does not include second-team All-American in Jaden Ivey for us. So what is that? Can you take anything away from that? Or is that just is it just one of those weird things that happened this year? What does it mean that you have all these great players in the Big Ten, but you don't have a great team?
I think a little bit of it might be a product of their environment. I mean, like, these are guys that stick around. Like Jaden Ivey's a sophomore. Keegan Murray, he's an older kid. Johnny Davis I think he's a sophomore, correct? I mean, these guys have been there for a minute. So I don't know that. I think sometimes whenever you get into the Big Ten and the Big 12, I think there's so many good teams that they kind of beat up on each other and they all kind of find a way to beat each other up. And then you see ways that you can beat this team, as opposed to looking at a Duke who played in a weak conference this year. And you're just like, man, I think they could do it, because they're beating the absolute mud out of, the bottom 10 or so odd teams in the ACC. So I think that could be a big part of it. And then to go along with both those conferences being so good, Big Ten in particular being so good, it's just an older league. So you can find out how to beat teams, and you have coaches that really scout well. And then you have guys that can perform the scout. So everybody's always finding ways. It's such a chess match with those guys. And the only reason that I don't think there's a surefire Big Ten team for the Final Four is because there's so many teams that play with in that league that play with bigs. And that's just not the way the game goes. And traditionally speaking, over the last, 5, 6 some odd years, teams with big bigs get exposed against guys that can shoot over the top. And that's what scares me about the Big Ten, right?
Yeah, I think that's kind of why, believe it or not, I like the idea of Iowa a little bit, being able to make a run more than some of these other teams. Even though Iowa doesn't guard, I do think that they have the ability to match up with modern college basketball teams a little bit easier than someone like a Purdue or someone like in Illinois. All right, our second-team All-Americans for the field of 68 collectively: Colin Gillespie, Ben Mathurin at Arizona, Jaden Ivey at Purdue, Jabari Smith from Auburn, and Drew Timme from Gonzaga. Third-team All-Americans: J.D. Notae, Arkansas, E.J. Liddell, Ohio State, Paolo Banchero from Duke, Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga, Walker Kessler from Auburn, who was also our defensive player of the year. The only difference I had was I had Chet second team and Jaden Ivey third team. Beyond that, everything else, I had the same 15 guys that we had collectively that I had on my individual ballot. Did you have anything different on the second team?
Second team, I went Jaden Ivey, Purdue, J.D. Notae, Arkansas, and then I went to 3 freshmen because I thought their impact was incredible, which kind of says a lot about me, because Paolo Banchero didn't win ACC Player of the Year, and Alondas Williams did, and I voted for Alondas Williams, but yet here I am talking about Paolo Banchero being a second-team All-American. And I just thought, like, after what he did against some of these nationally ranked teams in the non-con, I thought he deserved that nod. And then to wear the ACC Player of the Year, I'm talking just what they did against ACC competition. So I'm kind of backwards there. But Walker Kessler, I could have thrown him on the second team, quite frankly, because defensively there was nobody like him.
Yep. I think Auburn had 2 guys that had to be in that conversation, and Gonzaga had 2 guys that had to be in that conversation, no matter the way that you slice it. Do you like Walker Kessler as the defensive player of the year?
Yeah, I do. He blocks everything. He changes that team.
You want to hear a wild stat?
Yes.
I got a wild, this might blow your mind. Do you know the last time that there was a team that averaged more than 8 steals, more than 8 blocks, and held their opponents to under 40% shooting. That's what Auburn did this year. Technically, it was 7.95 blocks per game that they averaged, but they're still the only team since Georgetown, 1988-89, when they had Alonzo Mourning, when they had Dikembe Mutombo. That was the last team that averaged more than 8 steals, more than 8 blocks, and held their opponents to under 40% shooting from the floor for an entire season. That's wild.
It's so much about having guys behind you that you can get out and gamble a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's the big thing about Auburn. Like they have those guys, Walker Kessler, and Jabari Smith isn't a great rim protector, but he's still there and he's still athletic. But man, Walker Kessler just blocks everything. It's amazing.
He had 90 blocks in 18 SEC games. He averaged 5 blocks.
That's stupid.
He averaged 5 blocks. He had 2 triple doubles with blocks this season. That's ridiculous. Yes. That's insane.
Yeah, that's stupid numbers. Stupid.
When was the last time
on the defensive end?
In all seriousness, can you remember anybody that was a rim protector that was as good as him? When was the last time? Because honestly, I think it was Anthony Davis. It was the last guy that was as good as him as a rim protector.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's it. I don't see another one. You know, you want to say Mark Williams because, I mean, they play a little bit different and they don't switch out as much to where, like, there was a lot of blocks where Walker Kessler would get switched out. He would get beat and then block from behind. Like, Duke doesn't get in those predicaments, so he's going to have, you know, some chances to do it that way. But since Anthony Davis, no, I think it's about there. Imagine having 2 top 15 players in the country and struggling to win because you don't have guards.
I know. Well, to be fair, they won 27 games and they won the SEC regular season title outright. So yes,
well, to be fair, yeah, you're right.
They lost 3 close games down the stretch, but in March you're going to play close games, and that's something that is going to end up being an issue. So we'll see what happens. I still think Auburn's really good, and hopefully Wendell Green. On Saturday he had 10 points, 7 assists, 0 turnovers, and only took 7 shots. If we get that Wendell Green in March, I think that changes the calculus for this Auburn team a little bit. But listen, T.O., this has been fun. This has been the Doster, T.O., and Fanta podcast. We closed it as just the Doster and T.O. podcast. We got the talent stayed for the end.
He big timed us. He big timed us.
The entertainment left a little bit early.
Yep.
T.O., it's been a pleasure, man. I will see you Thursday night, Madison Square Garden. Get ready, buddy. Get ready.
I'm ready to go. I'm ready.